Welcome, community members and health practitioners, family and friends. We're gathered here on our traditional and unceded territory as the chiefs and directors of this incredible Secwepemc Nation. And our intentions are both beautiful and painful to connect with and support our people with traditional medicine and return to the wisdom of our ancestors.
But also to speak on the opioid addiction that continues to steal our family and friends away from us. As the drugs that move through our world become stronger, more dangerous, and more seductive, the tools within Western medicine and practice feel inadequate to the job of healing. And we feel that only a return and a reawakening of the wisdom of our ancestors will offer the support, meaning, and connection that is truly required to overcome these substances.
This is the intention of this forum and educational offering to provide insight into the practice and ways of being in the world that offer the community members and others, Indigenous or non-Indigenous, the opportunity to reconnect with their spirit and return to wholeness so that they are no longer craving.
Our intentions here are threefold, and we would ask that as you engage with the material that you reflect on these to reduce stigma towards those suffering with addictions so that they may be supported, loved, and held in the journey to sobriety. To encourage our critical thought and around current addiction treatment and recovery, and to inspire all of us to approach addiction and recovery through a lens of compassion, wisdom, and holistic understanding rooted in traditional ways.
We are honored to be offering the wisdom from Master Indigenous teachers and healers from Cree, Chickasaw, Secwepemc, Haida, Tsimshian, Comanche, Kiowa, and Tewa lineages in this offering, and we feel very blessed that these inspiring teachers were able to take part and share their medicines during these difficult times.
Alongside these teachers, we are also blessed to have peers from our communities. We have offered to speak on individual journeys into sobriety and the role that traditional practice and teachings have played in their healing.
Our offerings here also include tribute videos to several community members that we have lost recently.
As our hearts break to see these members, their stories and their journeys.
Our intention is to both memorialize the beauty of their lives and to affirm our concern and love for those struggling with this addiction.
Please, all these watching, know that you are essential to us, loved by us, and we want to help. And lastly, we are joined here by 4 of our wise community elders.
For a gathering we have called the Council of Grandmothers, and an unparalleled offering of wisdom and perspective.
As our communities grieve and attempt to meet the demand of their challenge, we look to our elders for insight and support.
And are unspeakably grateful for their offerings.
Thank you for joining us and for taking the time to consider these challenges, and we hope some transformative ideas around what will help lead the spirits of those suffering to come home. Cook's Jam.
Cook's Jam.
Cook's Jam.
Cook's Jam.
Wait, my name is Virginia Gilbert, and my Indian name is Whisnek. It was given to me by my elder, and thank you.
Oh, and Joshua Cecilia de Rose, a skek de mchken. And what else did you say?
No. And Louis Quest Lachel Juk.
And Joshua Jean William and Squawks de Lachel Quinn. You eat called cook bit. Yellow go ach. Alleen is klaar. Is ook een dicht om gegooid dat ik ook uitmisspien de ziet geld ook bij. Ik kom in gegooid is toch echt de kapespien. Geld ook bij kon dicht om gegooid doet te wild. Is geld klim. Doet wild en nog een de uitmis geld ook bij. Geld ook bij dicht ook. Eli hoedem zo erg zo ik ook. Is jouw jaartjes mij is. Eli hoedem pien de ziet. Gneemt u de second geld cook pin de seat. Hoe ga je het zelf normal relations?
It's I guess for me it's detrimental to our communities. I guess the opioids now are really dangerous. Like you don't know what's in them anymore, right? I knew I was going to get emotional. It's just so it's taken so many of our young people, our good people that have had really good lives and just recently have been drawn into the gang world. I have, within my own family, I have 3, my daughter's involved in drugs, my 2 granddaughters are involved. One of them is 17, the other one's just going to turn 27, and then one of them, it's her mother that's involved. I just recently lost a foster son as well to overdose. And it's really difficult because now I have one of each child from all 3 of those. Like I have 2 15-year-old boys staying with me because their parents are involved in the drug world. I have a 6-year-old great-grandson. His mother is heavily involved in it. And it's just happened over the last 18 months where his mother was a very supportive parent, working hard. Never was involved in any but very limited drinking, and she's just so lost now. I was chief for 10 years and on council for 16 years, and during that time I fought really hard to keep the drug dealers out of our community. And we were doing great for a long time, and then the gangs started coming into Williams Lake. There's different, not only the ones that they constantly name here in Williams Lake, but there's other ones that are coming in and they recruit those younger ones. And now as a result of it, the crime is really heavy where there's thefts. And my one daughter-in-law that I have, her son, because she was heavily involved in crime and drugs, got caught with distribution of drugs, and she had a large part in recruiting some of the other ones that are now involved. And it's really sad because her daughter is heavily involved, even as far as heroin is concerned, you know, and constantly. And recently she came home, asked to detox at my place, which she did, and then she left again. Not even a week later, she was back into it. So you can do all the right things, but it doesn't seem to help anymore. That's it for now.
Koeksterkoek en maar. En just wat hoort je Jean en squakst. June January is balk aan Jean te look as te zo ergs. Ik al mocht aan ooit. Bertjok Jean pien te metstem te tlachalch. Bent lo look as lo ga wanahum a kook be. Et a kook be knoegmens. En potjetje series. Hoelmen dem weet de sema. De sema weet. Elgst. Me je weet pot hem tlechol wheelig was weet. Zo erg no. Pien daar we mas so handam swet no weet. Tluchtlehol du wanechum du ech. Met kitchen se sui hacha. De tlehol de sta. Het malaman de hacha. Just wanted to take everybody back to when we were a small community. Our leaders were powerful leaders and their helpers. We seemed to be doing really well until we got the other governments imposed their laws on our reserve and started coming into our reserve. We seemed to be really comfortable as a community where we visited with one another. If someone was having a struggle in their home, the elders would go and be with the family and give them support. Now we don't know our neighbors sometimes, don't know who they are, where they're coming from. And what that happens in our youth are exposed to outside drugs, alcohol, and it seems like a fun experience. And that support for the families is not there anymore. Anyone can get addicted now. Anyone in the homes can get addicted now. It's really hard. It's difficult to watch. I have a nephew that I just really worry about a lot. When I'm talking to him, I don't know if he even recognizes me or knows who I am or what's my name sometimes. And that's really, really painful. That's painful to watch. Painful for the parents and the grandparents. Painful for all the family members. We didn't have those type of diseases when we were growing up. It seems like the diseases that we had in the past, there was always somebody that was able to help to make you feel better. Now, today, we can't. You struggle. And it seems like we just need the medical people to help. And a lot of people don't have any doctors, so they struggle. Even if they're trying to get off it with medical care. It's not consistent enough to do all the follow-up to care for them. I know in my own sobriety, for a long time when I was out drinking a lot, if it wasn't for my relatives here, and especially Anne, the help that I received, I wouldn't be sitting here today, possibly. And that's how close, and that's how wellness gets into our system when we know that somebody really cares. But like what Anne said, with these opioids, it's just out of reach. And we feel really helpless. It's really difficult to stand back and watch what's happening, not only in our families, but other people's families as well. And you feel so much for them. I guess it's all for right now.
Thank you, Annie. Thank you, Jean, for supporting our families when things happen. I had a beautiful upbringing. I remember my upbringing on my auntie and Granny Ellen's side, and my mom and dad, how hard they worked in the gardens. This time of the year they start putting in gardens and working with the horses, the teams, and working in the hay. My brothers would be working in the hay field. Really good feeling, proud that our families were working. Until I got to be about 10 years old, and around there when alcohol really started coming on the reserve. And it was sad to see. You could go to just about any house and you'd get a drink of alcohol. And I went through a day school, sugarcane day school, and we weren't allowed to talk our language or sing our songs or practice our ways. Then I went to the mission when I was in grade 6. After grade 6, I went to the mission for a few years. And then being called down all those years, getting ridiculed and called savages and stuff like that, and it brought down my self-esteem. When I left the mission, I was 15 going 16, and I got lost. I ended up on the streets. And I was ashamed of myself. I didn't want to be an Indian. I didn't want to be brown. I was ashamed of our language, of our drumming, our singing. And I went down on the streets for a few years, till I was about 20, 21, when I finally decided to sober up. I had 2 boys by then, and my mom raised my oldest one. And she already raised 12 of her own, besides me. Now she's raising her grandchildren. She raised him till he was about 5 when I finally decided to sober up and take him back. But I was still drinking then. And then I had another boy, and I gave him up. And I didn't see him till he was about 16. And all this is on account of alcohol. I've seen what it done to our reserve. How we used to go and visit each other. In the evenings, my mom would take us to Granny and talk and sit there and listen to them talking our language. And all of a sudden, alcohol came in real strong on reserve, every house. Parties and dances, and I really thought about it. My mom was real strong in the language and in our songs, and I really kind of followed that. And by the time I was 21, I was so sick of drinking. I wanted to be like my mom, sober and raise the kids. So I just decided. Well, I found a guy that I could stay with, and we had 3 children, 3 little ones. And we started sobering up then. But I could still see the alcohol around. And first time I ever heard our drums and our songs coming back strong, and then we had to take the kids away every weekend in the summer, when summer came, July and August, and we'd go to Alberta because they had relatives over there, just to get away from the reserve because it was so infested with alcohol. We went away, and we went over there, and that's the time I started sobering up, and I started seeing the scenery, our beautiful country. They say no matter where you go, it's so beautiful. I started seeing that. I started feeling that sobriety. But I still had a lot of healing to do because I was so full of hate and resentments towards what I was brought up from the time I was 10 years old till the time I became 20. And I started hearing about healing circles like the AA program, and I had to grasp onto that for a while to help me sober up and to leave my old friends and make new friends, and seeing new, people that help you with your self-esteem. I had to take a lot of workshops for that. Today I'm really proud of who I am now. I'm proud of being brown, because I know a lot of people want to tan, and even my son is about 45 years old and is laying on a porch in the sun and he's already brown, and it's so beautiful, that I'm sober. I've been sober 50 years now, 50 years plus, and all the struggles I went through, the challenges I went through, because I was ridiculed. Even when I was sobering up and I started drumming, using the drums, and I was called down, and I still kept on. And, being in the program, getting called down, heck with it, I'm going to keep on. So, yeah, and it's sad to see the drugs coming into our reserve now, because our young ones had, when I was struggling, I just had alcohol. I wouldn't, marijuana started coming in, but I wouldn't touch it. And then I quit. But now today, the children have both to struggle with, alcohol and drugs. Because when they quit alcohol, they go to drugs. And, it just goes on. And it's sad, because I have a beautiful, beautiful granddaughter. She's a healer. She can touch you and heal you. And yet she's addicted. And it's sad to see that. And the sicknesses, I kind of thank the sickness, because it pushes us back to stay home, because it kind of makes us look, it made me look what's going on with my kids. My son is a dancer, fancy dancer. He loves to dance. He's just, as soon as he hears of a powwow, he's gone. I had a son that was murdered 13 years ago. He was a beautiful, beautiful young man. He used to clean my yard, just spick and span. And in the winter time, he'd have my wood piled, and he'd have around the house all plowed nice. And then he got murdered. Today we're still looking for the ones that did it. He was very spiritual. He's a very good worker, and I lost him. I always think of him every day. I have a picture by my bed. Kids always talk about him, how they missed their Sisa, their uncle. Even though he was lost in alcohol, and that happened. It's on account of alcohol these things happen. I've seen a lot of my nieces and nephews that's passed on now. Not too far, a few miles down the road, I could see that truck upside down. One of my nephews pinned under it. Broad daylight like this when that happened. Another one shot himself. He was had a beautiful family, and I don't know why he did it, but alcohol's involved. So I'm really glad that I sobered up myself, and I'm sober. I got a home they can come to, and they can rest for a while. And just like one of our people here said, even though they have a few days of rest, they're gone again. They're out there again, and it hurts. Because my granddaughter's probably out there right now. But I always have a home. I have a bed for them. I have food in the fridge for them. When they come home, they're hungry. They're tired. I'm just glad I'm sober today that they can have this. Thank you. Guksjam.
I can't even talk. I'm Cecilia, and I never had a alcohol problem. I probably could have, but all my family did, except my mother and I. I always wanted to be strong like her. And I'm from Alkali. But so many things happened before people got on reservations, and the hate my mother faced. Because her father was white. And we had close relatives. We have close relatives on each reserve. I'm from Alkali. But our close relatives are from Sugarcane and Canham Lake, Doe Creek. We had relatives from all. And they were really supportive of my mother. But I always thought of the things my mother went through. Just being a half-breed, and they never accepted her. And she was raised by her, her aunt. And she was a hard worker. She just worked like a man. And there was 10 of us children. And one died of TB. In the olden days, everybody seemed to have TB, so. And finally, we moved to the meadows. My dad leased a meadow from the government, and he started a hunting program. Had his own hunters. He used to hunt with the people from Lacklahas, the eagles, and that helped them set up for hunting. So, and it's just south of Lacklahas at our meadows up there, and then it was great growing up in the meadow just by ourselves. And then we'd go down the reserve we had to go for Easter, Christmas, and all the big days of the Catholic Church. And everybody in the olden days was happy. They'd all go to church, and they'd all visit after church, and they'd all have their own little celebrations, and then I don't know. You know, you try to remember. You grow up, and then all of a sudden, 6 years old, and you had to go to the mission. And all of a sudden, you couldn't speak your language. You almost couldn't laugh or be happy. They wanted you to be sad and to be like an angel all the time. So you can imagine I was punished every day, got the strap just about every day, because I was just happy in my own little world. I didn't want to grow up being a saint or being an angel. I just wanted to grow up to be me. But that's all we done. It seems like it's all we done was pray. We'd work for a while. We'd pray before we'd done something. We'd work for a little while, and we'd pray again. Go to the classroom, we'd pray, and then we'd do a little bit of schoolwork, mostly catechism, Bible, and then we'd pray again, leave for lunch. You could just, the routine. Then we'd get to bed about 8 in the evening. We'd pray we prayed all day long, so pray before we go to bed, and then we'd pull our beds closer together and we'd tell little stories, and sometimes we got caught, sometimes we didn't. So, but we were up by 6:30 in the morning, and we got dressed, went downstairs, get washed back up to the chapel for low mass, and then Sundays was high mass. I could just go on and on. And then we had to go to confession every week, because we had no sins, but we had to make up sins. And then we'd pray and pray and pray and pray. And then when we finally left school, then of course everybody was drinking and having lots of fun. It looked like fun, but I wouldn't say I didn't try it. I did try it, but I didn't think it was fun. But to get drunk and laid out and fight and happy, and to get your guts up, you had to have a few drinks, before you go dancing. We tried everything, chewed snuff and smoked cigarettes, and we made our own fun, because on the reserve there wasn't any outsiders allowed. You had to be in on the reserve at 9 o'clock. You weren't allowed to be downtown or whatever. And even if you came to town with horse and buggy, then you had to be off the street by 9 and down on your camp. We were just restricted. We were restricted since I was 6 years old till the alcohol opened up for the First Nations, and then we were allowed in the bar, but we weren't allowed to take the booze home. We were free on our own reserves, our own lands and stuff. We could go riding, we'd do anything. We'd done everything, gardening. We'd go swimming in the lake, but we weren't allowed to be in town. We just had to get our groceries and back out of town. We only came in twice a year, summer and fall, to get our fall supplies of sugar and flour and stuff. And then we just went to the meadows in the winter, trapped and hunted squirrels and stuff, and we just lived on our food, except for we always had a big garden and a big root cellar, so we had lots of potatoes and carrots. So all we needed was coffee, sugar, and flour and stuff like that. And we were just happy by ourselves till the alcohol came into the reserves. And then our own people were even selling alcohol to our people. By then I was married and had my little ones, and I was always happy to bring them home to my mom and dad, and so they won't forget their heritage. And then it was just impossible to bring them for a whole week. We used to come before Christmas and before Easter. But then the alcohol was so bad, we couldn't sleep at night because people were coming and going. They thought we were bootleggers coming in to sell booze, so they were just... So finally I just had to have quick visits with my mom and dad, but I never wanted my children to forget who they were and where they came from. And thank God my husband was a rancher, so most of the time we stayed by ourselves, my kids and I. They grew up, grew up like our family grew up together. And then they got into rodeo and stuff like that. Because I was so scared, that they'd get into alcohol and drugs. Because it seems like it's so easy. And to be weak. So I always preached to my kids, and oh yes, we hear it, They'd roll their eyes and say, oh yeah, yeah, we hear you, Mom. But I was terrified. I was wishing I never had any kids, because the world seemed to be collapsing around us. And we had no control. We were Indians. And to be Indian was just horrible. No matter how we tried, the world was against us. We were nobody. But the ranching part was what helped my children. They got into 4-H, and their little 4-H group didn't care who they were, what they were. The kids don't seem to care, it's the adults. And I always brought them, when we were on the ranch, we always came to church at Sugarcane. I like that little church. And once I got away from the Catholic Church at the mission, then I could see the Catholic way. And I didn't want to give it up. And I still do believe in the Catholic Church in my own way. So I tried to raise my children Catholics. But none of them really took to the church. They like the Great Spirit. They said that's only belief they have. They still take me to church if they have to. Midnight Mass or for close somewhere. But I think the church really done a damage. Because once I left school, there was nobody there to say, go to Mass, a priest is here, go down. I'd say, no, I had enough. I have enough prayers, I prayed enough to do me the rest of my life. But now I realize that you still need prayers. And I still pray for my children. I don't have to go to church to pray, because my church is out there. I pray anywhere I want to pray now. But the worst thing and I thought my preaching all about my preaching about alcohol and drugs to my children and my grandchildren. But I just lost a grandson with drugs. So I spent the rest of my time praying for the rest of them and all the young kids. And I pray every day that our people will get stronger. Because the grandmothers, we can't do it forever, we're trying. But we have to get the chiefs and the council on our side somehow. I don't know how we're going to do it, but now our kids are my great-grandkids. I don't know what's the future for them. My grandchildren are all having children now. So I don't know what it is. We're trying different things. We have prayer night. We used to have full moon night. And the church didn't seem to help us, so we were struggling to do something somehow to reach our children. Our children are so precious. Our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren. We have to do something before, because we haven't got much time left to help our grandchildren. We're bringing the drumming and singing back. They're there, but it doesn't seem to go in. Everything we believed in before, they told us it was false and it wasn't true. Our beliefs weren't right. The Catholic Church was the only way to go to heaven. So what can we do? How can we help? That's all I think of every day. What can we do? We can preach our hearts out, but what can we do? We just seem so helpless. So help us, help us.
My sister was on Vancouver Street, and she phoned me up to go pick her up. She had enough of it. I was raising her 3 little ones already when I sobered up. And she finally quit. She wanted to quit drinking. Right down this street down here, it's the boot. What they call the boot. She phoned me one day and she told me, come and pick me up. And I thought, wow, she just wants a ride home. So I went and I picked her up. And she finally started going to AA and started talking and seeing a counselor and stuff like that. And all of a sudden I heard her. And she said, I didn't know my sister was praying for me all this time. She said, she sounded really happy about it, really glad that somebody was praying for her, and she finally made it to stop, to quit. That's how powerful prayer is. Even though sometimes we can't see it. You know, like my sister here is saying, we don't know when, how are we going to help those people out there. Prayer is powerful, I think. I pray every day too.
That is a real tough question. How are we going to help them? Like Cecilia says, she preaches to the kids all the time, and I think we all do, you know. We remind them when they're going out, have fun, but be careful. Have fun, try and enjoy yourself, but come home safe, or be careful what you take, be careful who you're around. You know, in the past, like I said, you know, our plants in the forest would help us with whatever or ailments we had. But now these drugs are pharmaceutical drugs, and we don't know anything about all of that. I think sometimes it's not cool to go back to the sweat. It's not cool to be taking our own medicines. I don't know what it is that they are thinking. But without that, like even with my own, getting to my own sobriety, you know, I used to sweat every day with a family. Every day they had a sweat, and I went every day. You know, and that was so helpful. I don't know what type of peer group they need, you know, what type of peer group they need. You know, it's really sad when you take a look at our lineage, you know. There was 13 of us in our family, and there's only 4 of us left. Younger sisters that were at the end of, like, all our older brothers and sisters are gone. And what's caused all of that, you know? Maybe there were some with diseases, but underlying those, alcohol was a big problem. And now with these opioids, even the word scares me. I don't know. Like Celia said, we'll try anything. Like we try snuff, we try cigarettes, we try, you know, they'll all try it. Like she told me that. I was telling her about my grandson, I think it was, and her reaction was, yeah, they'll try. You know, they'll try things, you know. I don't know how we could catch them just before they reach 16 or 17 or whatever age, you know, and just say, that's poison. How do you tell them it's poison? How do you tell them that it's really baffling. And all we can do is just pray and hope that it just disappears. But the devil is powerful. The devil is so powerful. And that's what that opioid is. You know, those hard drugs. That's the devil trying to alter your personality, and that's tough. Peer pressure is, you know, the schools that we have nowadays. I was just talking to one of my sons yesterday, and he went to a daycare that was just for him. And when it was a culture shock when he had to go to grade 1. And I didn't know that. He didn't tell me he was afraid. It was a culture shock for him when he said all of a sudden he had to go and be with other kids. And yet we were, exposed him to all other people. And he said, why was I so different that I was all at once I was in one group and then I was expected to go to another school, and I never thought of that, you know, the day school part of it, you know. But you don't hear that until they're adults and stuff. But anyways, peer pressure is really tough. Working in the schools, it was really, really tough. That's it.
Yeah, the schools, like we worked in the high schools, and we were teaching the language. I mean, after they took our language away, then they were trying to give it back. You know, it's impossible. But we were counselors too. They gave us a quick course in counseling, and we had to counsel 300, 400, well, there was 800 in Kolomnica. And then we had their load on our shoulders, our family's load. But you know, we should have had more counselors because our poor teenagers were just overloaded. And they needed a real counselor. I don't know if the real counselor would understand Indians' problems, but we had real problems. They had real problems. You know, it wasn't just little problems. I don't know how they even got to school and how they graduated, you know. And, oh my God, you wouldn't believe the problems those kids had, and they came to school every day and had to return home every night. You know, at least in the residential school we were there. And our problems weren't like... Those kids had real problems, I'm telling you. It was unreal. The problems they had once they had to stay home. Oh my God, it's just... And today now they're covering it up with drugs and, you know. I mean, I would too if I had their problems. I'd probably go overdose and get it over with, you know, or shoot myself. Because my friend that I went to school with, her problems overwhelmed and she just shot herself. And there was no way I could have helped her. You know, I tried, but our world, the Indian world, it's just overwhelming. I don't know how people keep living every day. You know, just one thing comes at them every day. So if you're weak, you're gone, you're gone. You just go and take drugs or drunk to get drunk and forget about it, you know, for a few hours. So how do we get through? It's been bugging me, so. You can pray and pray and pray, and is there a real God, you know? Is there a real God? Maybe there isn't, I don't know, because he doesn't seem to be hearing us.
Even the sickness is not stopping them from
Yeah.
alcohol and drugs. They're still going at it. They don't want to listen. No matter how much tough love you can give them. You know, I used to give money and money and money. Every time they asked for money, I'd hand them a few. What are you going to do with it, you know? I don't know what they're going to do with it when they get to town. And they'll phone me up 2 o'clock in the morning, either in jail or in a hospital. They want to be picked up. I told the cops, keep them till morning. I'll come get them in the morning. Lucky they're there, you know, because we could have found them somewhere else. So it's a round and round circle, it seems like. Like you can give them all the tough love you want, and they'll still go bypass it.
For me, it's interesting listening. I don't have their experience of residential school. I never went, but I did go to Indian day school. And I can remember when everybody would go to the mission, it seemed to get really quiet on the reserve. And I was like Mrs. Duro spoke about her mom. I was a half-breed too, and I really paid a price for it. When they'd come back from the mission, I used to have to learn how to fight, because to them I was a little white person, and I didn't belong. And I went to day school till grade 8.
Oh, you
and then go to town, and then you're a brownie. So then you learn to fight that life, after growing up, being fighting, trying to convince people that you're you're not just a white person, and then you go to the higher school, and then now you're a brown. So that was really hard to go through. But I grew up with my grandparents, and there was extreme violence in our family. And Virginia and I have the same, like her dad and my grandfather are brothers, and we experienced the same thing because they had a bigger family. I was a lone child, so I witnessed a lot. My grandfather was extremely violent, not to me personally, but to his wife. And then my grandparents raised me. My grandmother, I call her my mom. She never drank till she was almost 45 years old, and she fell off because of her husband used to pressure her because he drank a lot, and she just said, if I ever start drinking, I'll never quit, and that's exactly what happened. She started, and they pretty much drank every day. So when I had my kids, I never drank. When I had my kids till, I don't know, 1993, when I got into a really bad car accident and our marriage fell apart. I drank when I was younger, but I quit when I had my kids. And then, fortunately for me, I put all the majority of my kids in sports, and it seemed, and Jean's son was one that was involved in a group, and one of my cousins, Lynn Gilbert, and I formed a hockey club, and we took boys from every reserve. We had about 20 of them, and I think we saved those boys. When you look at it today, all of them they have families, and they're not into the drug world, and they're doing pretty good. People like Dave Archie was one of the ones, and Jean's son, Joseph, and my son that just passed. But, you know, like with the world evolving, if people can't afford sports, it's extremely expensive. Like, I was blessed that Lynn and I were able to do fundraising, and when we went away to tournaments, Jean would come with us, and we'd just buy groceries and buy a hotel with a kitchenette, and we'd cook for all of the ones that couldn't afford it. And I think that's the stuff that got lost, is people don't care to, like, every time you want something now, you got to hand out for money, right? Everything you do, like when I was growing up, like Virginia talked about, and Jean talked about our neighbors. You'd go to your neighbors, and my mom and them would visit every night, and if somebody was sick, one of the neighbors would come and cook or housekeep or tend the gardens or whatever it is, but you don't see that anymore. Like, anything that you do now, you have to pay for. And I think a lot of people today, they're in this drug world because they can't afford to put their kids in those kinds of things. And fortunately for me, my sons helped me a lot, and then my two grandsons, three of them actually, my great-grandson, are all in sports through support, but we know how to fundraise and stuff. But at one time in our reserve, almost every home on our reserve had hockey players in Williams Lake, and we don't anymore. Like, I honestly think it's only myself and Jean's grandbabies that are in hockey, and Robin's, and those are the ones that were involved in the team that we formed. They all continue to put their kids in, but I spoke about this before, that we need a treatment center close here, that starting from a young age and stuff, where kids can just come to town or whatever, or families. Not like an in-kind is there, but it's not enough. It's not enough. Like they're
Canada-wide, they're the whole worldwide, like the Yukon and the States, and anybody right across Canada can go to that one, and it's always booked in. Just like Annie was saying.
Yeah, we need something, because our kids are all getting into it.
Anne talked a little bit about when we were involved with the Native Sons, and they were really, really, really respectful. If Anne said something or Lynn said something, they listened because they had consequences too. Like if they didn't behave, there's other hockey players that wanted to come in. You can sit at home if you want to be, you know. So that never ever happened. Never had to happen. It wasn't a real threat, but we just said, you know, there's other kids that really want to play. We can pick other ones. And today we can talk to any one of them. We can approach them and talk with them. And then we also ran a hockey, not only the hockey club, but the rodeo club. Oh gosh, we round the clock for whole weekends. Anne and Joan and myself, you know, we ran the hockey club. You know, just to have events on the weekends and that you're going. I didn't get involved with the baseball, but her and Lynn ran the baseball. You know, there was events you don't see parents doing that anymore, you know, or grandparents doing those kind of things anymore. And we had fun doing it like it wasn't a job. We just, you know, the rodeo club, we couldn't wait till the rodeos came, and then the hard work started, and then same thing with hockey. Every weekend, how many spring breaks we were in Merritt. Everybody's else, teachers going to Hawaii and going everywhere. Where are you going, Mrs. William? Oh, oh, to Merritt to a hockey club. I was the driver, and I found it fun, you know. I'd do it again if I could. Yeah. With my grandson, I did the same thing. You know, I traveled. Summers, I took him to hockey school, and, you know, and I'm the grandmother. You know, the parents were working, I have the time off.
Yeah.
Same with Anne and Chris, you know.
You go day and night. Even when we were teaching, we had Lahel clubs or Lahel tournaments, ball hockey tournaments. I mean, we spend our weekends, so I mean, we taught them all and counseled them all week, and then we entertained them all weekend. Mm-hmm. We had bannock competitions and what do you call the Mexican thing we used to talk? Indian tacos. We made our bannock and then we called it Indian tacos. And I don't know, we done everything for those kids, but we still lost some.
Yeah, we had to do our own fundraising.
Yeah, we had to fundraise
on Wednesdays
and take them to the Indian, down Kamloops to the museum, Indian museum.
Take them to youth conferences. Took them to Vancouver once. To UBC, you know, we never thought of having, they didn't give us time off, you know, we still had to show up.
They didn't give us a bonus.
They wouldn't even give us a bonus, you know, we worked with the kids all weekend and had to show up for work Monday morning.
Yeah.
No overtime, no days off. You know, those type of commitments that we really wanted to get them away from home and where the alcohol was so they could see what type of places, you know, different places, what kind of entertainment they had. We had a lot of fun, yeah, with the kids.
We seem to have one generation that's lost, and it seems to me it's in a 40-year-old somewhere in there. It's those grandkids that we have to raise now. And then the other thing Jean talked about when we were talking about our hockey club is respect. The respect is gone today. Like you know, I've witnessed people trying to discipline their children or grandchildren, and they mouth off right back. But like even today, my son, when I'm disciplining my grandsons and they say anything, he'll stand up and say, "Don't you talk to my mother like that," or "Don't you ever let me hear you talk back," blah blah blah, and he'd tell them like I'm, you know, 37 years old, or my oldest one was 47, he'd say, I'm still scared of my mom, you know. But that's gone, I think. I think that's a huge part. And when Jean talked about the respect in a hockey club, we ran that hockey club, I don't know, 15 years or something, and we only ever had one incident of we brought on a new player from one of the surrounding communities, and he brought alcohol, and then he realized, I guess he got scared and he wouldn't go into the hotel. He slept in the car that night. But when he got up in the morning, because we cooked breakfast for them, he got a lecture that said, if you ever do it again, you're not playing for us again, and it never happened ever again. You know, but that's gone, I think.
And we could take our native sons in any town and they'd be accepted. A lot of hockey clubs members, they wouldn't allow, but we were able, and we go to the same hotel and they'd have football or something for them, because we didn't allow, after 10 o'clock, they weren't allowed to go anywhere. They had to be at home and in bed, in a motel and in bed. If you were late for breakfast, that was it. You know, we set strict rules because, you know, they had to sleep and they had to eat, you know.
And it showed too, because they won those tournaments.
Oh yeah, they were champions. They were champions, yeah. Oh, but when we used to take them out for their food, I think the restaurants were scared to coming. Everything would disappear.
That's good.
Oh my God. And I was the driver, but they used to sleep. They were quiet. After a game, they were just so. But there's so many opportunities in hockey today. If parents would just go and see what's available, it just boggles your mind. There's so much, eh?
Mm-hmm.
And then when you get these letters coming in, and Malachi got one from Phoenix. I said, oh my God, Phoenix.
Thank you.
And thank you. And hopefully somebody will hear.
Even if it helps one person, it'll make a difference, you know.
Weiko Huaydup, Cookbeat, Willie Sellers, Runsquest, Tekekal Sequapmulu. Hello everyone, Chief Willie Sellers here, giving you some closing comments. Juhinu, we survived the night, was a common term that our elders used to use back in the residential school days, and I think surviving the night is very similar to what we did here. We survived the day, and we're embracing every single day, similar to what our survivors are doing, both from the past and now with this current opioid addiction, opioid crisis that we're dealing with currently in our communities. I think you look at the rest of the province and the world and how it's gripping every single one of our communities. The stats, looking at them, for example, more overdose deaths annually than suicide, homicide, and motor vehicle accidents combined with the opioid overdose crisis that we're dealing with. That is a very scary stat to think about. And if you're looking in your community where you're at and you don't feel that you're being impacted, every single inch of this province is being impacted, and it's continuing to rise. What we're doing here is we're educating. We're trying to find an alternative way to battle the addiction crisis that is going on in this country, you know, by bringing in our ancestors and you know, embracing the healing component of our culture and our traditions and our ceremony. That's what we're doing here. We're trying to find that balance. We're trying to bring back those old ways to help us battle it. And I couldn't be more proud to give you closing comments today. I couldn't be more proud to be a part of this production and to give you some of my thoughts. And I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope it healed you just like it healed me. Enjoy your day. Cook's Gem, all my relations.